Call the meeting of the Wyomissing Zoning Hearing Board to order. We're here today to hear from Mr. Michael Gombar, Esquire, on behalf of his client, Wyomissing Square Commercial LLC, owner of property located at 945 Hill Avenue, identified as tax parcel ID number, please fill those in, and 901 Hill Avenue, identified as tax parcel ID number. Is requesting a variance from section 606.C.3 signs to allow a wall-mounted sign and a blade sign to be installed in the building facade for each tenant of the property. 945 and 901 Hill Avenue are two of the condominium units that make up Wyomissing Square. Both units are owned by Wyomissing Square Commercial LLC. The underlying zoning district of the property is C2, Retail Commercial District. The property is also located in and was developed under the regulations of the Commercial and Industrial Redevelopment Overlay District. The property is the ground level of a commercial building structure that faces the north side of Hill Avenue. The applicant has undergone substantial renovations to create 12 to 15 separate tenant spaces. The applicant will allow each tenant to have a wall-mounted sign facing Hill Avenue, providing the tenant's name or use. The individual tenant signs are permitted by right. The applicant is also proposing each tenant be allowed to install a smaller blade sign or wall-mounted projecting sign that is attached to the building and projects outward at a 90-degree angle perpendicular to the flow of the foot and vehicular traffic. This angle makes the sign more visible, forward-facing signs for pedestrians. The applicant owner will control by lease the design approval for all the signs to ensure they are uniform and consistent. Section 606.C.3 sign of the zoning ordinance allows no more than one sign to face a street. A variance is required to allow both the wall-mounted and the blade sign per tenant space. Okay, before we begin, I'll introduce the people that are down here at this end of the table. You all know Michelle, I'm sure, and Najla Batish is a member of the Zoning Hearing Board, and Dan Becker is counsel, and I'm David Rothwell, I'm the chairman of the Zoning Hearing Board. And Mr. Becker is going to tell us how we're going to proceed.
Thank you very much. This afternoon, the burden of proof is upon the applicant, so that means that you have the opportunity right now to explain why the relief you're requesting should be granted. You're going to be able to do that with the assistance of counsel. Mike Gombar, he's been here before us many times, so he knows the process. But you'll do that by providing oral testimony as well as any exhibits that we may have as well. At the conclusion of each person who's providing testimony, their testimony, the board members and or I will have the opportunity to ask questions, as will those residents that happen to be here today as well. After all of your testimony is presented, we will look to the residents. I see there are two out here, to see whether or not they have an interest in this matter, and if they want to present testimony themselves, or if they're just here to observe or just to make a statement. After all the testimony has been entered into evidence, the board members will take a brief recess, go into an executive session, and typically we will render an oral decision the same day today. We do have 45 days in which to issue the decision and or render the written decision. Do you have any questions about how we intend to proceed today?
No questions.
All right, I see there's some residents. Are they with you?
I'm Wyomissing Square Commercial.
Okay, so you're with.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm with Wyomissing Square.
So it's Gregory Heflin, he's one of the owners of the applicant.
Okay, would you spell your full, just so we have it for the record.
Sure. It's Greg Heflin, Heflin.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
At this time, he's not intended to be a witness, so that's why he's sitting.
Got it.
Put him in the back of the bus.
That's where I usually am.
Mr. Janik, you're here just to observe, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right. At this point in time, Mr. Chairman, I guess we're ready to proceed.
We are ready to proceed. Let's start by swearing Mr. Gombar's witnesses and Michelle.
Who are you calling us from?
So we have two witnesses today. First is Mr. John Connors. He is a member of.
Let me get their names first.
Sure.
I can't write. And Mr. Connors, can you spell your last name for me?
C-O-N-N-O-R-S.
Okay. And
Jacqueline Kelly.
can you spell your name for me?
JACQUELINE KELLY.
you'll all raise your right hands, please, let me get sworn in first. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay.
Very good. The show is yours.
Okay, thank you, good afternoon, everyone. I don't believe I need to provide much of a summary or background of the application because it has already been provided in your introduction letter, and as Mr. Rothermel provided on the record. So as mentioned, I do have two witnesses here today for the hearing. The first is Mr. John Connors, who is a member of the LLC, which is the applicant owner of the subject property. He'll be providing some background information to you about the property and basically the necessity for both the wall sign and the blade sign for all of the tenants at the property. And our second witness is Jacqueline Kelly. She is the technical consultant for the owner and also an employee of the owner as well that has a little bit more of the technical information about the signs themselves, so she can talk about that part of it. And so just to be clear, as mentioned, we are requesting a variance from section 606C3 of the zoning ordinance, which provides that only one sign is permitted for each tenant use. So at this time, the maximum tenant spaces in the design is 15 tenants. So we are requesting, in essence, 15 variances, which would be one extra sign for each tenant space. That doesn't necessarily mean that on day one you're going to see 15 separate tenants, but we thought it would be best to request our maximum amount of potential tenant spaces so we wouldn't have to potentially come back here again in the future for any future tenants spaces that will be created there. So with that, I will call Mr. John Connors as our first witness. Mr. Connors, remind you that you have been sworn under oath for this testimony. So could you just identify again for the board your name, address, and your connection with the applicant, please?
John Connors, I am a member, as Michael said, of Wyomissing Square Commercial LLC. Also, along with my partner Greg Heflin, are managing the design, development, and lease up of the shopping center pursuant to a separate development services agreement with Wyomissing Square LLC. I live at 110 Fitzwater Street, Philadelphia. What was the other question?
That's it. Thank you. So at this time, I would ask the stenographer to mark our exhibit. Would it be appropriate to make them applicant exhibit 1 through 5?
Yeah, so the applicant exhibit 1 through 5.
Okay.
Do you want to mark them now, or do you want to just,
It's up to you, he has them already separated, so
fine?
I can work them after, so we
Yes,
can
that's
keep
fine.
moving.
Okay. So Mr. Connor, I'm putting in front of you what's been marked as applicant exhibit 1. Could you just identify for the record that these are 2 deeds for the subject property?
I can.
Okay, and do they establish that Wyomissing Square Commercial LLC is the owner of those properties?
It does.
Okay. And just as far as background, can you just explain to the board why this is broken up into 2 condominium units?
So, the original development was done as a 5-unit commercial condominium, wherein unit 1 was the apartments, unit 2 was the hotel, unit 3 was a first section of retail, 32,600 rentable feet. Unit 4 was the Viva Restaurant, formerly owned by JMH. Unit 5 was the office building. That plan has been amended now, and there are, I believe, 6 commercial condominium units. But units 2 and 3 retain the retail designation. They recently came under unified ownership, which was sort of a key aspect of putting the whole shopping center together. Wyomissing Square Commercial is also an affiliate of the apartment owner, Unit 1. So in effect, what really happened was Unit 1, the apartment owner, consolidated ownership in separate entities, but of Unit 1, 3, and 4. So that's where it stands today.
That's essentially,
1, 3, and 4.
that's essentially that building.
Yeah, that's correct, sir.
Just the first floor though,
Right.
correct?
Yeah, well, but that's all there is. Yes, the entire building is now under ownership of affiliated entities.
Correct.
I was also the original master developer retained by JMH way back when, to plan and construct what you now know as Wyomissing Square. So actually Greg Heflin and I created the 5-unit commercial condominium, drafted the overlay district ordinance, secured the LERTA,
Sorry, secured them.
LERTA, and all of which, and actually some grant funding for environmental abatement and infrastructure, all of which allowed Wyomissing Square to proceed in stages back from day one. So obviously the last piece has been the retail. It proved to be more difficult than originally thought, but I think I can say right now that it looks like it's going to be all we ever hoped it would be, and then some. So very excited about the fact that it really is going to have a very nice edge to it when it's done.
Worth waiting for.
I don't know about that, but it's going to be really good. You know, our theory was always to have a sort of a neighborhood lifestyle center that you know, would be Wyomissing's living room, and that's the way the project was conceived. That's why the promenade is probably the defining feature of the entire project. So activating that, we think, is going to be really special, and got a great tenant lineup. We always thought it would be anchored by food and beverage and health and beauty and fitness, and that's exactly the way it's shaping up with really high quality tenancy. So happy that, and it took a while, but now it actually is on great footing.
Okay, so thank you. So just to clarify for the record, the property that we're talking about is the first floor retail space, also the promenade along Hill Avenue between Reading Avenue and Park Road.
Right,
Is that
units
correct?
3 and 4.
I'm sorry.
Units 3 and 4.
And do you know approximately how long is that stretch on
So
Hill Avenue?
basically, you have 500 lineal feet from one end to the other, which you know, is the essence, frankly, of our request. Because we renovated an existing structure, it is monolithic and flat-faced for 500 feet. So you really almost can't see from one end to the other if you're standing at the, you know, far east end looking west. And the promenade was intended to be sort of a extraordinary pedestrian experience. So this is all about what the pedestrian sees while they're on the promenade, and how do they identify the various stores and where they begin and where they end. You know, to be simple about it, the wall-mounted signage is very helpful for vehicular passersby to identify stores, but the pedestrian on the promenade really can't see the wall-mounted sign. And in addition to, you know, being wayfinding, I'll use that term loosely, to identify which stores there are, it's also architecturally, from a design standpoint, a way to demarcate the various stores so you sort of know where you are on the promenade. So, you know, for that reason, we think it's appropriate, even necessary, to have both wall-mounted signage and plate signage.
This includes where Viva used to be,
That is correct.
so it's that whole strip.
That is correct.
To give the board some perspective, we do have, I guess we consider it an artist's rendering or a video of the entire promenade. You would indulge us if we could play it. I don't know, do we mark that as
We do.
exhibit A6?
If we're going to show it, we'll market it.
Okay.
So we'll make this as applicant's number 6.
Andre, I sent this to you, maybe you got it, like half an hour ago. If not, let me know.
Google took it.
Amazingly, it's shaping up to look exactly like this.
When's the next
that end cap you see right there will be Vintner's Table, that's Marco Foligno's concept, up to and including this, that first storefront. The next two storefronts right now are, leased to Club Pilates.
I'm sorry, Art, what? Mark, the next two are,
Club Pilates is a signed lease. Sola Salon, which you're looking at right now, is also a signed lease, and they're gonna be opening in 2 weeks.
And are those black?
Yeah, so
Sign-
like, protruding signs you see are the blade signs that we're talking about, and you can see how helpful they are in terms of, you know, variegating that flat storefront as you go. But this was a walk down the entire 500 feet. And there's the last piece. So everything you see from like the enclosed area there all the way down is what used to be developed and is now Unit 4. Everything to the west of that is Unit 3. But it's all being developed as a single shopping center, retail center, with indoor-outdoor space and outdoor dining. You can even see that there's on the corner there, that's a nano wall that'll open up, and that's an indoor-outdoor bar with seating that'll hand out over the, that's all part of the restaurant premises. So, and you can see, looking all the way down, you can only see to the middle of the building right now. There's another 250 feet beyond that outcropping.
So although this is a virtual rendering, is it fair to say that in real life, your company has invested a lot of money into making these improvements to make the property look similar, substantially similar to what it looks like in the video that they just saw?
Yes, absolutely.
And you did talk a little bit about the tenant spaces, so I would ask you to take a look at what's been marked as applicant exhibit 2.
Yep.
Could you just identify for the board that that is a floor plan or proposed floor plan for the property?
Yeah, this is a snapshot in time, and it shows that Vintner's Table is a lease. It shows Club Pilates is a lease. It shows Primo Hoagies is a lease. Sola Salon is a lease, and Cafe Foligno is presently a lease. And we are out to lease right now on another 4,000 foot full service restaurant, which we hope to, which will be a really high quality sushi ramen restaurant. I think great addition. You know, some other exciting tenants that we're negotiating with, but do not yet have a release.
So when I look at what's been marked as applicant exhibit 2, when you count it up, it's approximately 12 to 13 tenant spaces showing, but we are requesting relief for approximately, or up to 15 tenant spaces. Can you just explain?
Yeah, I think, you know, we need the flexibility going forward because obviously tenants, you know, change out over the years. We did provide entry doors in every bay so that we'd have maximum flexibility going forward. But right now, if I had to handicap it, I'd say we're gonna have 11 tenants, but we're gonna be sort of
50, did you say?
15,
15.
yes.
And as part of the negotiations with the leases with these tenants, is there an expectation of commercial tenants to have a 2-sign structure, meaning a wall sign and a blade sign as you're requesting?
Yes, there is, and in fact, Sola Salon, you can see their space stands proud of the building frontage. There's the 3, let's call them bump outs on the end cap and in the middle. And Sola Salon insisted on signage not only on the front-facing wall, but window signage on the interiors. So yes, they absolutely are expecting to have, you know, that store identification for folks who are on the promenade. And if I can go way baback, in our original land plan approval and our original, permit applications for, the overall project, we did in fact have blade signs incorporated into that package, and they were part of the submission to the borough 15 years ago. And honestly, I didn't know until Jackie started digging in that we needed a variance for this. I just thought that that was something that had been implicit in the previously approved land plan. So
So is it fair to say that that's an industry standard to have these?
it is when you have a promenade. Now, promenade is a word that is used in a lot of shopping centers, very high profile ones. So there's a promenade in Center Valley that everybody knows about, Big Lifestyle Center. There's another one in Marlton, New Jersey, and they feature the same pedestrian walkways over long expanses, and they all have blade signs in them. It's a standard.
What's in the back there? The parking is depicted, is that the under?
That is the parking garage that services the apartments above.
Okay, all right.
That is not retail parking.
And that's not, but that is accessible.
Yeah, you can see there's a, sort of in the middle of the building, or that big yellow space.
Yeah.
That is a part of the condominium unit number 1. So that's where their access to the garages and elevators go up into their building, and then they also access the promenade, right there in that little yellow slip.
Gotcha.
Let your attorney get his commissioner all the way out, because I can't see it. Okay.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
So you mentioned earlier that you were part of this project from the beginning almost. What's your plans for the future? Do you intend to remain an owner, operator, landlord here, or do you look to transfer this to someone else?
So, I am now a member in Wyomissing Square Commercial, but not the managing member. And ultimately, management will be provided by RP Management, which is the operating company affiliate of the apartment owner. Okay, so they already have an on-site staff, engineering, porters, etc. And so this summer will be managed. We'll probably have to add some maintenance personnel, but we already have significant management on site. So from that perspective, this is going to be different than most strip shopping centers that are third-party managed, remotely. This is going to be all day on-site management. So, a big key piece of getting this done, frankly, was consolidating ownership and getting JMH's piece and my piece and the apartment piece all together, and everybody, having a community of interest and being able to reorganize the shopping center. And it's as good. If you were going to build it in a cornfield, you'd build it just like that. Right now. I mean, the depths are right. The leasing modules are correct. Column spacing is excellent. It's a really high quality 50,000 square foot shopping center.
Is it fair to say this surrounding neighborhood has other commercial retail space?
Yes. All you need to do is go 1 block east, and you're looking at Sly Fox and Kempington Whole Foods, and those should have been my tenants. They were my tenants until I got, anyway.
So is it fair to say that a potential goal of this is to be a pedestrian friendly,
I think the walk score is gonna go way up all of a sudden.
Sorry, the what?
The walk score, the walkability aspect, between Knitting Mills and Wyomissing Square, and potentially even linking to the center beyond that. I mean, this is gonna be a very walkable neighborhood right now, and a high concentration of, top of the market, residential inventory. From a urban planning standpoint, you know, this was a smart growth award winner when the apartments opened, but this is the realization of all the pieces working together. You know,
Is that part of the reason why blade signs are so necessary for this, because they are the visibility that the pedestrians need to see, to know the tenants that are available and where they could potentially be patronizing?
Yes, again, I think the blade sign is, you know, critical to the pedestrian experience. If we don't have that, they'll be guessing what's next, where, and how far do they have to go, and, you know, it just seems to me to be the obvious, correct solution.
So the blade signs would be uniform, they're not gonna,
That is correct. Blade signs are uniform, provided by the landlord,
okay,
and then tenant signage will be also as prescribed by the landlord through the landlord's sign vendor, and they'll be laminated to the side of the blade signs. They are not backlit, they will be lit from above, also by lighting provided by the landlord. So, you know, it'll be uniform, it'll be tasteful, and it'll be effective.
I don't have any further questions for Mr. Connors at this time.
I have two questions, I think, maybe more, depending on how you answer. The first one is, I want to make sure I'm clear, you're asking for up to a maximum of 15 blade signs.
That's correct.
If you have one use that's, suppose you have 13, as you, I think you show now on exhibit A2, and somebody asks for 2, would you give one tenant 2 blade signs? Is
I
that
wouldn't
part of the
consider it
agreement?
unless you had a reason why not.
Well, I'm just asking if that's part of the request, because I think that would be in addition to what you're requesting now, I just want to understand.
No, we would ask for a maximum of 15, and we wouldn't go back.
But it would be one sign, one additional sign per tenant, so it's 2 signs per tenant. If somebody came in and said, you know, I want two blade signs where I'm located, and I'm not at the maximum 15 blade signs.
Right, so let's say that a tenant came in and wanted 10,000 feet, they had 80 feet of frontage. I would consider giving them 2 blade signs.
So you want the ability to have more than 1 blade sign per tenant, but no more than a total maximum of 15 blade signs.
That would be preferable, yes.
Let me just make a note for that. And while I'm doing that, one of the other questions, and maybe you can go through and explain what the LRTA is, and are you still eligible for LRTA tax benefits for this particular project?
Yes, the alert is in full force and effect.
And why don't you just explain just how that works?
So the alert is a 10-year tax abatement, that has fixed payments over the 10-year term of the LRTA, and it becomes effective, on the date we get the, initial certificate of occupancy, I believe.
Thank you.
And that applies only to unit 3, not to unit 4.
And unit 4 is the one that's furthest to the right.
Unit is formerly DIVA, correct?
Okay, so the unit, if we're looking at exhibit number A2, it's the one that's furthest to the right where it says RP Management Inc. and Dennis
Yes.
for that, is that correct?
Yeah, there's separate units and separately assessed.
And is that where the dividing line is for the unit 4?
Yes, right at where you see Cafe Felino there.
Okay,
That's
So-
Cafe Felino begins unit 4.
so from Cafe Felino going to the right down to the end,
That's correct.
that's unit 4.
Yes.
So the LRTA negotiated in the original?
Correct.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I have my notes correct on another issue. When you were first talking, I thought you said units 2 and 3 are the retail, but it's actually
No, 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just correct that.
And unit 2 is the hotel.
I'm sorry, and 2 is the hotel?
Unit 2 is the hotel. Yeah, unit 2 is the hotel.
I'll move.
Save you some money,
Yeah.
or
What's that?
LERTA.
LERTA.
It's all caps,
Okay.
it's an acronym.
Yeah, I figured, but I didn't know how to look it up.
Economic revitalization tax assessment.
You don't want that on the record.
No, something like that. No, that's fine.
Probably abatement of an assessment.
Assistant.
Okay,
There you go.
all right.
I think we're good,
That's
Mike.
all I have.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. If there's no further questions, then I'll go to Ms. Kelly then. So Ms. Kelly, could you just identify, I remind you you're under oath, and just identify your name, address in relation to the applicant for the board, please.
My name is Jacqueline Kelly. I reside on South Fourth Street in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. I work for RP Management as their marketing creative director. I've done that for 5 years, but I've been a graphic designer for 25 years. I specialize in branding among our apartment communities and also have taken great interest in the branding for this commercial aspect of the block. So I'm basically in charge of making sure, I'm in charge of making sure that there are guidelines for all the signage at the site, and that would include the storefront signs, which are single letters on the facade. We have canopies, so those are individual letters that are hanging either from the front of the canopy or underneath the front, either above or below, depending on the type of canopy. And then there's cladding on the wall.
Sorry, can I stop you there
Sure.
real quick? I'm gonna ask you to look at what's been marked as applicant exhibit 3.
Okay.
Are these
Yes.
depictions of the wall signs that you were just talking about?
Yeah, so type A is a flat canopy. That's the center tenant Sola Signs has that type of canopy. You can see in that picture that on the far left is the actual vertical letter of the sign, a side view of that. So, and you can see in the photos across the whole page that the letters are white, the typefaces are single letter across the front. So our idea is to make this very upscale and clean and for everything to conform nicely to the visual aesthetic of the whole block. So,
Am I correct in saying that these signs are permitted by right under the zoning ordinance?
correct.
And each individual tenant is gonna have a unique sign themselves, correct?
Well, they can use their logo on the blade sign. That would be a way for them to have, use their individual branding. But as far as the branding for the whole space, there will be up to 3 typefaces for each of the signs at each storefront. So there would be like the third picture against the cladding, individual letters, or actually hanging off the canopy.
And all of these signs will be conforming to current code?
Exactly. We have a maximum space between the columns, and we have a maximum height of 18 inches for the letters. And the width has to be 80% of the cladding space between the divisions. So they'll be no bigger than 18 inches tall and 10 feet long. And the signs that are on the canopy will be black during the day, the letters, and they'll be lit from within at night. And they'll work off of sensors, so they will shut off during the day. And the building signs, because they're on a gray background, those letters will be white. And so our goal is to keep everything very tasteful.
So,
And-
so while we're on this, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to ask, because
Sure.
I think it's the proper time. So, you said the wall signs, I think the most important question I have for you is this: they will all comply with the
Yes.
zoning ordinance,
Yes.
is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's really all I need.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we're not asking for any relief with
Right.
respect to the
Right.
wall signs.
Good.
Okay. Just wanted to give the board a perspective of the
Yep.
2-sign combination. So I'd ask you then to turn to what's been marked as applicant exhibit 4.
Okay.
Is this an example of the blade signs that we are proposing for the property?
Yes, it is. That is Sola Salon's logo, and that is their blade sign. There is an adjustment on the size. It is 27 inches by 38 inches, so slightly larger than what's depicted on
I'm sorry,
this.
27 by.
27 by 38. It'll be reversed of what this image shows. The background will be black and the logo will be white, and those will be consistent on all of the blade signs.
I'm sorry, I missed it. What is 27 by 38?
The actual size, so
Okay,
slightly larger than
So
what's
this
there.
this exhibit has the wrong dimensions on it.
Yes,
Got it, thank you.
sure.
And will the blade sign have the identification on both sides of it, so if pedestrians walking in each direction can see it?
Exactly.
And how would it be lit?
If the building has a light on it and would shine down on the blade sign. So it would not be lit from within.
And would it be the same as the wall sign, that it has a sensor that would only come on at night, that would be
Yes.
needed?
Exactly.
Is there gonna be any type of animation or
No,
motion with these signs?
No.
So they'll be stagnant at all times?
correct.
Do you know about how high they would be off of the ground?
We have the bottom of the sign at 8 feet. Does that sound correct? Yeah. So, I don't have a size for the entire mechanism, but it would be 3 feet. I would say between 12 and 13 feet on the building.
And to the question that was asked about the wall sign, the blade sign itself, other than the request today to actually have the blade sign, if approved, the blade sign itself would comply with all of the provisions of the borough's sign ordinance, correct?
That's correct.
And even when taking the blade sign and the wall sign in conjunction together for each tenant space, they would all be in compliance with the zoning ordinance, except for what we're asking for today, correct? Do you see any safety issues with that blade sign?
No.
Okay. In other communities, I think they would put like a planter or something
Right.
underneath it to prevent any type of things happening to the blade sign that maybe shouldn't happen. Is that?
Right. There are some built-in planters on the site, and then I'm not aware if there's a planter under every blade sign, but we're definitely taking that into consideration.
And did you agree with everything that Mr. Connor spoke about the need for the blade sign to enhance the visibility for pedestrian walkways along the promenade?
Yes, very much so.
I'd like to see her say no.
I have to tell the tenants a lot of no for what they want for their signs.
Okay, at this time I'd ask you to look at what's been marked as applicant exhibit 5. Are these two photos of the shops at Wyomissing?
Yes,
Is the shops at Wyomissing a similar type of promenade retail area within the borough?
yes,
Okay, and do both of those pictures show those tenants as having both a wall sign and a blade sign?
yes, they do.
I know they're a little bit different than what you are proposing here and that we looked at in applicants exhibit 3 and 4, but is it a similar type of
Yes.
configuration then? Okay. So does that just follow Mr. Connor's testimony as well, that this is industry standard to have these types of combination wall blade signs for pedestrian type of retail shopping centers?
Yes, ours are gonna look nicer than that.
I don't have any other questions then for this witness.
Yeah, I think that the idea is consistency and commonality of them, so that as you look down the line, it's what everybody wants to see.
I do have a couple more questions for Mr. Connors, just to wrap this up.
Okay.
Mr. Connors, to just remind you again that you're under oath. Just a few questions for you about the technical elements of a variance request under the zoning ordinance. Is it true that you, the applicant, did not acquire this property with the knowledge that the variance you are requesting today would be needed as part of your future business operations?
That is true.
Is it also true that due to the designed walkability of the surrounding neighborhood and this retail center, that unique conditions exist relative to the property that warrant the need for blade signs at the property?
And they do.
Is it true that a hardship exists at the property due to the straight length of the property being approximately 500 lineal feet, in that tenants will not have the same exposure to potential customers and store locations, depending on where they are standing at the property, that would be necessary in order to allow that proper visibility that warrants the need for these variances?
That is correct.
And is it true that these hardships were not created by you?
They were not.
And is it true that the applicant, is it true that you are unable to reasonably use the property without the granting of the variances requested today?
Yes.
And is it true that the variances requested today will not alter the essential character in the neighborhood in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use of the development of adjacent properties, nor be detrimental to the public welfare?
Yes.
And last question, is it true that the variances requested today represent the minimum that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible for the regulations at hand?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any further questions for Mr. Connerson.
No questions.
I do have one question for Ms. Bear. Ms. Bear, did Borough Council of Wyomissing Borough review this?
You can ask the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's gonna get into that in a moment.
Oh,
We're gonna
okay.
go through her testimony, and I believe she'll answer that question at that time.
Got it.
We'll put her on. If you still need to ask something at that time, Mike, you can ask.
My apologies, got it.
I think she'll take care of what you're asking.
Got it. Mr. Connors, do you have anything else to add?
And
Ms. Kelly, anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Okay. Applicant rests his case at this time.
Thank you very much.
Ready to go?
All right, so at this time, we've already sworn Michelle Bear into the hearing, so at this point, Michelle, in your capacity as the zoning officer for the borough, what are your duties and responsibilities?
As the zoning officer, I prepared a memo to the zoning hearing board dated March 30th of 2023, summarizing the application and the relief requested.
And is that the memorandum that was read into the record earlier today?
Yes.
All right, we'll mark that as board exhibit number 1. Do you have any further information relevant to this hearing as the zoning officer?
As the zoning officer, no. As the zoning hearing board secretary, yes.
All right, so let's change hats. What you want is the secretary for the zoning hearing board. In that capacity, what are your duties and responsibilities?
I prepared a public notice that was advertised in the Reading Eagle on March, hold on, my cheat sheet's over there. March 29th and April 5th of 2023. That same notice was posted on the subject property on March 21st of 2023 at approximately 10 a.m. And it was also mailed to all adjacent property owners located within at least 300 feet on March 20th of 2023 at approximately 10 a.m.
Do you have copies of those documents with you today?
I do.
And we'll mark those as board exhibit number 2. Collected. At the time of the application, what was the zoning ordinance that was in place?
The one that was printed January of 2022.
Mark that as board exhibit number 3. We're not gonna move for that into evidence, however, we will mark it as board exhibit number 3. As the secretary, do you have any further information or correspondence relevant to this particular hearing?
I do. A letter signed by Council President William Jenks sent to the zoning hearing board on behalf of Borough Council and the Borough's Economic Development Committee expressing their support for the variance request to be granted to allow the wall-mounted and blade sign to be installed for each retail tenant of the property.
We'll mark that as board exhibit number 4. Do you have any further information to present to the zoning hearing board today?
The application, if it was not included,
It was not included, but we will mark that as board exhibit number 5, just to have it for easy reference. That would be the application that was submitted by the applicant on, what was the date of that application?
submitted March 3rd of 2023.
March 3rd, 2023. Anything further, Michelle?
Yep.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dunbar, any objection to the board's
No objection, and I did fail to request admission of our exhibits A1 through A6, so I would move for that.
So, do you have any further questions for Michelle?
No questions. No.
Okay,
Before we stop, if I could talk to my client for 2 minutes, I just have one thing I'd like to clarify.
Sure. Recess.
yes.
Are you going there today?
Yeah, I was gonna attempt to, I have 4. Right,
Before you,
Is it 4 dates or just?
yeah, all in the past week. I would think 2 days, I mean, I'm kinda shooting sharp now here, but. Next Thursday.
But, yeah,
3 commercial
yeah,
units.
part wherever you can, yeah, that's right, exactly, that's the way they do it in West Reading.
Special exception,
you expect, let me ask this question.
Yeah.
I can't speak to the residential one, because I have no idea how to get into it.
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head, what the, one's at CLN, one's at Dayton, so 2 special exceptions. No, I mean, nothing that's, I'm okay with that, if you guys are up for 4 hours.
Yeah, no, that's good. Appreciate it.
We just keep going. No.
Michael,
Yes.
Give it back to the record, hold it back to the record.
Wait.
yeah,
I don't move that fast. Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you, we don't have anything else.
Thank you very much.
Can we stay outside?
Yeah, now you go.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Jacobs. you-
Yes, 1 second, I have things.
Approve the application by Wyomissing Square, Commercial LLC, for a variance from section 606C3 to allow them to install 2 kinds of signs on the building, blade sign for each tenant, as well as a wall sign for each tenant, subject to some conditions.
And those conditions would be as follows. The applicants will be bound by all testimony and exhibits that have been presented at the hearing today. The applicant will comply with all the rules, regulations of the zoning ordinance and of the borough codes and ordinances. The applicant shall use and develop the property and maintain it compliant with all federal rules, laws, and statutes. Applicant shall obtain and pay for all permits that are necessary as part of the development. The applicant cannot otherwise alter alter from the zoning ordinance unless they come back in for, or this decision, unless they come back in for additional relief. The implementation should be commenced no later than 1 year from the date of the written decision. And the final one will be that there will be a maximum of one sign, so 1 blade sign per tenant. So that means you're prohibited from having more than 1 blade sign, even if you have less than 15 being used. If at some point there is some tenant that you think deserves having a second one, you can come back in and talk to us at that point. All right?
Good, second the motion, and this enormous group says aye, and, the relief is granted.
Thank you very
Looks
much.
great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
We're
Thank you.
very, very pleased, and actually I have to run over to Whole Foods to get something for dinner.
Yeah, I really wanted that one.
Yeah.
I started working on it literally 10 years
Can't
ago.
release it until the written decision.
And they would have fit nicely into unit 4,
Another
but we
30
didn't own
days and
unit
they have to
4.
set the release.
So
So you're saying I could,
But they're
I
in
have
the
to
right
wait?
spot.
Yeah, they're in the right
You
spot.
can
It's in the
submit, we'll
right
get the
spot.
review
That's-
done,
that's
and
really
hopefully the
nice.
building permit will be
Really
waiting
nice
for you,
submission.
but they have
It's a-
45 days to issue the
It's a
written
nice
decision,
building,
and I can't
good,
release the
good
building permit until
location
I have
for
it.
them, with
Absolutely.
parking.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, at least
It
the
is.
permit review
Yeah.
will
Works
be
great.
Yeah.
taking place at the same time we're working.
Right.
Yeah, now we're all neighbors, it's good.
Okay, so it'll be,
You're in
each
for-
tenant will have to
Hmm?
submit.
All the great